It's 7 p.m., so I'll call the meeting to order for the Development Review Board for Monday, September 12th, 2016. The first item are public communications for any items not on the agenda. Seeing none. The only agenda item we have this meeting is the application by Lars Hubbard for Redmond Properties, LLC, at 88 Manelli Road. The next item will be the approval of the minutes, 8/8/2016. Is there a motion?
I have a point to make about the minutes.
Okay. We need a second first.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and second. Ann?
Sorry. On line 102, I don't know if it needs amending. It's not wrong, but Andrea said the flooding's unlikely because there's no basement.
Right. Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Jen,
Was that, excuse me, Kim,
Yeah.
that wasn't at the municipal gymnasium, was it? Was that the,
What line?
which one? I thought we were at the library,
Oh, you're right. Thank you.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Good catch. Thank you.
Okay.
that was at the library now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, before we go any further, I forgot to mention that we welcome Ann as our new member to the DRB.
Thank you. Means you can get rid of me faster if you don't like me.
Really?
You don't like her?
Okay, Jen, do we want to deal with interested persons tonight?
Nope, no need.
Okay, so then right to the business agenda. And prior to the well, I'll read it first. An application by Lars Hubbard of Redmond Properties LLC for conditional use review of an addition to the building containing Appalachian Gap Distillery. This property is located at 88 Manelli Road in the Industrial District. And before we have you testify, if you will respond in the affirmative to our oath, I affirm that the evidence and information I am giving in this proceeding is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge and belief.
I do so affirm.
Okay, would you like to come forward and talk to
Assume the
us?
position.
Yes.
So we're sort of looping back to a meeting we had on May 11th of last year. The result of which was you guys gave conditional approval and then asked that I go to the architectural board so that they could review the plans and make suggestions as to materiality and the way that things are being done. The result of that meeting was a directive by that board to report back to you whatever they said, and at that point, it seems to have died on the vine. I can only blame myself for not having chased after it. I had understood that the process was done after the architectural board checked it through. So I was somewhat surprised to find that that wasn't the case, but here I am to present again.
Okay.
Fundamentally with the architectural board, did you receive a report about that meeting, or shall I summarize it for you? Or
Yes, we have a copy of those minutes.
Design advisory.
Design it.
Fundamentally, what they were concerned about was what sort of siding I was going to put on, and actually were supportive of my idea of trying to make it so that the new construction and the existing construction that contains the distillery would have a different materiality than the rest of the building, so it sort of demarcates it. And the other issue that they had was to make sure that that we did something about the landscaping, which I'm completely happy to do because, yeah, I realize that it needs work. I haven't had the time or the money to put into it. So that's going to be part of the process. The first thing we have to do is we have to actually tear out the entire parking lot and driveway and widen the road going around the building so that we have a double wide road going back there for fire access. That was one of the conditions of my Act 250 permit, and my building permit, excuse me. And once that's done and everything sort of settles down, then we're going to be doing some landscaping at the entrance to the property, because that's basically, it's just kind of barren and beat up, and there's some cattails, and it just needs help. And then the other sort of opportunities for landscaping are pretty much confined to in front of the new building. On those plans, you see where it says landscaping. We're going to keep it low because we're going to be having our logo on the side of the building. Beyond that, I'm not going to get too carried away. I want to make it welcoming and appealing because I want to attract visitors to the place. And so that's basically my plan.
Could you
Go ahead. Yeah.
Could you please point out, I didn't notice where it says landscaping in the plans.
Basically, the slope from the steel building coming down towards the driveway on one of the, there you go.
Ah, thank you. Okay. Thank you. I was busy looking at the building. I did wonder about that when I went over there, because I thought that was existing, not newly proposed.
What's
Obviously
existing
it's not
there?
existing.
No,
I
well,
saw
what's
that.
existing there right now is actually, we cut out all sorts of, I mean, there's just, you wouldn't believe what was in there. But anyway, we cut it all out, and then weeds came and took over again, so I have to cut it all down again. But
Okay.
essentially, there's a bunch of little rocky outcroppings in there, which are actually going to work really well for some landscaping. It's not just going to be, you know, a bunch of mulch with some wart gardening in it. We're going to be able to have some fun with it and have it look attractive, which is definitely what I want to do.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Lars, you said that you're going to widen the road so there's access to the back of the building?
Yep.
And where is that road going?
So it's the existing driveway that goes around behind the building to access the Champlain Valley Creamery area, which is by your left pinky.
Here.
Yeah, so that road, that driveway there, I have to make it 20 feet wide, all the way back, and make enough room for basically 2 fire vehicles to be able to pass each other.
Does that go behind the whole complex, or just that?
It basically goes, so if you, in that plan there, there's sort of a driveway, and then there's what looks like a sort of a parking area, and fundamentally, I'm just widening everything about 10 or 12 feet.
Okay, so it's not going around behind it?
No, basically, we just have to get it to, so that the
Okay.
trucks can get to a point where they can reach every point in the building with their hoses. And
Okay.
that was what was agreed to by the state fire marshal.
Yep.
And this was an effort to avoid having to put sprinklers all through it, which would have just killed me, so.
So, was that, the fire marshal gave you that, or the
Yeah.
local?
It was the state fire marshal, assistant fire marshal. We basically consulted with him, and when Via Architecture did the plans with me, we were in consultation with them as to what we could do to make sure that we comply with code.
And did you say sprinkle too?
No, by having this double wide road going around the
Okay.
south
So
side of the building.
you saved the sprinkler cost.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. I'll spend $20,000 on a road to save $100 on sprinklers. It's pretty
That's a
easy.
good, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's probably more rules because it's alcohol production, right? You've got a lot of alcohol
Well-
storage.
Right, well, it's the alcohol storage that's the issue, and in that case, the only thing that we have to be sure of is that we have constant airflow. We don't want to basically have the molar volume of the alcohol build up too high. So the building that we're actually going to be storing the alcohol in has a vented roof.
Yeah.
And the eaves are open a little bit, and it's just constant airflow going through it. And in the facility itself, we have a whole blast mitigation plan that we did with the fire marshal as well, as to where we did things and where we could put our outlets and all of those sorts of things to just avoid any chance of there being a problem.
Thanks.
I noticed that what you said in 2015 was that this construction will actually make the grindings operation safer than
Yes.
it is currently.
Yes, absolutely. What we're doing, well, when I prepared that, I didn't think we yet had our new grinder. I basically have our grain mill set up outside because I don't want to have dust build up. It's basically in an open shed, so there's air blowing through it. In this new setup, we're going to have an enclosed room with a blast-proof fan that's constantly blowing. The most dangerous thing in a distillery is not the alcohol. It's actually dust from grinding grain. So that's a big part of what we want to get accomplished here. The other thing that we're going to be able to do in that room is we're going to be able to enclose all of the movement of grain through the grain mill and into the mash tun. So there is not going to be as much of an opportunity for free dust to be blowing around.
Okay, the existing tenants that you have, they're gonna all remain there?
Yeah, well, one of them's me, so that helps. And Champlain Valley Creamery is downstairs. They have their cheese plant down in the basement. I have a 7-year lease and I have a 7-year renewal. And they are showing no signs of wanting to go anywhere. They might want me to put in more of a cheese cave for them at some point, but they're still quite comfortable in the space they have.
Okay, so you don't foresee any need of more parking at this
No.
point? Any other questions from the board? Jen, do you have anything?
Yeah, are you guys done? Okay, so I was thinking outdoor lighting was something we were wondering about.
So on the existing building, when I bought the building, the only outside lighting we had was one out by the parking lot and one sort of at the entrance, neither of which were working. What I have on the building now are LED downlights that are switch on automatically, and I'm going to continue that around the building, so the entire perimeter is lighted at night. And that's pretty much the extent of it. We don't do business at night, so I don't know that I need to be concerned with parking with lighting the parking lot. Understanding also that long, 50-foot side of the building that's facing the parking lot is going to have probably 4 lights on it, so that's going to cast ambient light into the parking area.
So would you plan to turn off all the lights that are around the perimeter at night?
They're on a light sensor now. They come on at night and they stay on until the sun comes up and then they go off again.
So there's security lighting?
And I need to have that anyway for the feds. It makes them unhappy if people can get to the whiskey easily. So
Ah, interesting.
yeah, I have to have particular lights and particular locks.
So is there any light in the parking area?
There is not at this time.
Okay, and
I thought there was one light on a pole at the entrance to the parking area.
Yes, that is defunct, and we're
Oh,
going to take it down
I
when we
see.
tear everything else out. Yeah, it was defunct when I bought the place. In fact, I found the reason. There was a hole where some wires cut. That somebody tore something else out in the middle of the lawn.
The lights that you have now on the north side of the building, do they cast sufficient light to enable people coming to the tasting room to avoid tripping in the dark in the winter?
Well, again, they don't come when it's dark, except maybe at dusk, and the lights will come on. And I'm regularly there late into the night, and I can see perfectly well to my car.
Okay.
And with even, we're going to have more than twice as many lights once this new building is up.
And then I also had a question about the landscaping at the corner of Manelli Road and the entrance. The DAC had talked a little bit about dressing up that corner.
Yes, I spoke about that. When
Could you run that past me one more time?
Sure. I said that the entrance to the property there's one side of it is all full of cattails and overgrown stuff, and the other side is a ditch that's kind of ugly. And once I'm done redoing the driveway, the plan is to make that all welcoming and try to clear it out a little bit. I'm toying with the idea of cutting back some of the growth that's around there, where there's a big telephone pole in the middle of it all that it's not very attractive. So
that's to the left of the entrance?
Yeah.
Or north?
yeah. And then we're also getting into wetland, which makes people grumpy sometimes. So.
Okay. Will there be any additional plantings of anything?
That is the plan. Essentially right now, it's almost impossible to figure out where my driveway is because it's not demarcated properly. And so the idea is to use those plantings to do that and to make the whole thing feel more welcoming. And then to also put small directional signs in there. Right now, we have a temporary one in anticipation of being able to do all this. But the idea is to dress the whole thing up.
We don't want to be careful. We make him do more than we make other people do on that road. None of those accesses are really attractive.
Yeah. I was concerned about the landscaping until I went over there, and then I realized that the neighboring landscaping, although there's some very nice landscaping further towards Route 7, where Mr. Hubbard is, the landscaping doesn't really exist.
Right.
And my thought was that given his desire to have this tasting room business, we can probably rely on him to do the best job he has the money for, to make it attractive for people to want to come in there. But I don't know if, do we need to see a
You're right.
plan?
If
Do
you
we?
go back to the original intent of the development area that we're now talking about, it was never intended to have retail space, it was never really was intended to have walk-in customers. It was designed for commercial use and manufacturing. We've kind of got away from that, from the original industrial part. Because that is part of the industrial part. That falls under a little different purview, I think, than some of the other areas in town.
Okay. Any other comments? Or?
Yes.
I'd like to ask, is your outdoor lighting covered under your Act 250 permit? Are there conditions on lighting?
There are not.
But ATF has told you what you needed to do.
Yes, and we listen to them.
Yes.
Well, we call them
I think
TTB
you
now.
probably should.
Yeah. Yeah, fundamentally, I don't want to have any part of the outside of the building that is dark, because that presents opportunity.
Have you already pulled your building permit? Do you have it in hand, or do you just have
From the,
You said the state building
I have every permit in place. In fact, my understanding was I had this permit in place, and that was my mistake.
Okay, Jan, I thought, phasing, you had, has the phasing part of the project been solved, or is that still the concern?
Yeah, just, is it still planned as a phased project, that you would build it in phases, or are you gonna build all
Well,
this
the
at
plan
once?
is to get all of the foundations in before the snow flies and the steel building up,
Mhm.
and then the rest of it through the winter, as and when we can
Oh,
pull
okay.
it together. But we basically have a 6-month construction period is what I'm shooting for.
Okay.
I might run into 8, depending on how cold it is this winter, but that's the plan.
Is it the internal development, like the bottling line and so on, that is phased rather than the construction?
No, when I was talking about phasing, it was really based on what sort of financing I could put together and what sort of construction crews I could put together in order to do this. Because fundamentally, the steel building and the sort of the connector to it is, could in theory be called phase 1. The building off the extension off the south could be called phase 2, and the tasting room could be called phase 3. And that's actually I'm going to do the steel building first, then the infill warehouse, then that building, and then the tasting room. But it's all going to happen in that same period of 8 months, or 6 months, is the plan.
Any other questions, concerns?
Ann had asked, so do we need a plan? Do we need a landscaping plan? And, I mean, you wouldn't need a landscaping plan unless you, it all depends on how you want me to enforce these conditions, or how you want me to create these conditions. So if you want a condition about landscaping, and then you want me to double check and make sure that it was done, then we should very explicitly state that condition in the absence of a landscaping plan. So I don't know if there's any other questions you want to ask about landscaping.
I think in light of the number of times that has changed hands and changed usages, no one ever before has decided to work with a landscaping plan. I mean, I can remember when it was, who built it, who was in there, who was out of there. It is in the industrial park.
I'm not in favor of requiring a landscape plan for this.
I think it's in his best interest to make it look nice.
Exactly.
And if he makes it look nice, it's gonna be nice for his business, so.
Okay.
Nice roads.
Hmm?
And nice roads.
Yeah, and nice for us.
Good, so I won't include any conditions about landscaping, we'll just leave it to
God
Lars to
forbid,
do what
if
he
you
has to do.
cut down those cocktails.
One less thing for you.
Gently.
Okay. Anything else? If there is nothing else, would someone like to make a motion?
in light of the presentation tonight, that should have been addressed by, this visit to the DAC. I move approval. The motion as it was written in the staff report, which I can't read. It's on computer file.
I'll second that.
So this is really the second time we're approving.
This is.
What about his first permit? I mean, where does that stand? Are we just,
That was just a preliminary
That was a
approval?
preliminary.
You got it. Good job.
I got to,
Walk to the DAC.
well, that was not my understanding. That's what it turned out to be the case. My understanding was that you guys had approved it, and that I was going to have the architectural board rubber stamp it, and then we were good to go, but that doesn't seem to be the case, which is why I'm back.
As a conceptual.
Conditional
I
approval is
wasn't
what it
there.
said.
It
That's-
was-
Some people remember.
According to the minutes, it was conceptual approval with a recess of the hearing.
Okay.
So,
Answers your question.
This would be final approval.
Okay.
yeah.
All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. And Gary is voting tonight, since Scott is not here.
That's good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Good luck.
I'm going to need it.
What time does the tasting room open?
Every day at 1.
Gary, I'll see you there at 1.
Pretty early.
A little early to start
5 o'clock
tasting.
somewhere.
But it's good of you to pretend you don't know that.
So I had a call today about, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to run your hearing for you.
No, I'm just trying to find my agenda.
Okay,
Deliberative session.
I think we're into other business.
Yes, other business.
So I have some other business. I got a call today about, from a realtor who has a house on Court Street. It's the one that's right next to Phelps Engineering on the same side. It's got the little lattice work on the porch. And she has some people interested in it, but they would want to use it for commercial. So she wondered, is that something that she needs to plan on a hearing for, or is that something you would feel comfortable waiving the hearing for? And let me work with her to figure out how to do that change of use.
It's the OFA, so.
Yep.
Which one is it, Jen?
It's right next to Phelps Engineering. It's
North?
across,
Right in the corner.
Thomas
yeah,
Street?
Thomas Street, thank you.
Which is the Phelps Engineering Building, across the road, right?
Well, it's south
South.
of that, so it's,
It has an IPJ sign on it now and a ladder
Yeah.
somewhere.
So as you go down Route 7, there's Phelps Engineering, and then there's Thomas Street, and then there's a little white house with a front porch.
Yeah.
It's that one. So,
Do we know, does she know what is she thinking? What kind of use?
Not much
commercial
parking there.
offices. Yeah, there's not much parking.
I mean, it's hard to get it. I've been in there, and you have to come out, change your mind before you can turn around in there, because there's no room.
Yeah. So maybe you would want to review
You
that.
really need to look at the parking requirements.
Uh-huh.
Parking is off Thomas Street, right?
No, it's actually, Thomas Street doesn't connect to the parking.
Huh?
No,
how do you,
How do you
There's a
get
little
into it?
garage on the
Access to
side.
the garage
right,
is off Thomas
yeah.
for the house.
But you need to, it's not a really,
The access to the property is off Thomas Street.
The vehicular access.
Right.
Yes, okay, yeah.
I have the right house, right?
Mhm.
but there's no parking,
There's no on-street parking on Thomas Street.
right?
Yeah,
And there's
okay.
no parking in that
On
little
that property.
parking
well, is
area either.
that something Jen can address? I mean, she could,
Well, as long as it meets the parking requirements.
right.
Yeah, if it met the parking requirements.
I mean,
She could do
I
it,
don't
but
see
I
any
don't-
problem with it being commercial. I mean, we
No,
had.
I don't.
I mean, Phelps Engineering was there, and then
Right.
there was Jerry Beecham and his insurance, and then all those lawyers up and down.
That's it.
But they all have
It's-
adequate parking up and down
It's
through
a-
that.
No,
Yeah,
yes,
I
no, but his
understand
point
that, but
is,
my
that-
point is
Yeah.
that, I mean, if we're only addressing parking, that's
Yeah.
something that Jen can
Yeah.
deal with unless the
unless,
rest of the board feels.
well, unless it requires more than what is available there.
Right, so she might want to use a green space waiver if she's got some lawn area that could be converted. Or they might want to use an on-street parking waiver. Now, if they wanted to use the on-street parking, should we come review it as a board then, since there's no on-street parking?
Their garage
There's
on
no
there.
one part, huh?
there a garage on the property?
There is.
Yes.
Yep, it's got an apartment
I
in
want
it.
to tear that, oh, there's an apartment in it?
Uh-huh,
Okay, we don't want to tear it down.
that's a thought.
See, and
yeah.
that requires spaces as well.
Two,
so,
right.
Yeah,
I think that this is complex enough that my recommendation would be that if it does require a waiver, it should come, they should come and present to the DRB.
I would agree with David.
Yeah, I
They
would
can
agree in
show you
that
that
case,
they-
but that's why I'm saying,
If they can meet the parking requirement, if they can sneak a car in and get.
I
20
feel
feet
comfortable with
of-
that, because I can count parking spaces and I can measure things out. But if it comes to making a decision on whether or not we want to grant a special exception, I'd rather have you guys do that. Okay, so let's leave it that way.
that's fine.
The other thing I'd like to be fairly careful about is the definition of OFA versus commercial. Somebody said they want to do commercial.
Yeah.
This is, allows it, it's an allowed use. But OFA is not intended for some,
Commercial.
and we know that because people in this neighborhood showed up at our meetings to make sure that we agree to the definition of OFA from how many years ago.
Okay, anything else?
Kind of across the street from there is another one. It's a house that's set back, so as you're going down Court Street, heading toward that new pediatric dental office, it's like the houses are all up at the street, and then there's one that's set way back. It was green, and now they're re-siding it.
Yes.
We know
So-
who that belongs to.
Crossman?
Jeff Crosman's,
Jeff Crossman and Bernie and Louis Canal about that.
Right.
yeah.
They want to, they're converting it, or they're.
Yeah, Louis Canal was in, and he said it's a single-family dwelling now, but he'd like to convert it to like 4 apartments. And it seems pretty straightforward. I mean, there's plenty of parking there.
Yeah, there's.
Is it Louis or Bird?
Well, they're partnering together. It was Louis that came and talked to me.
Oh, who came in to talk to
Louis.
you? Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That figures.
I never met Bernard.
Well, his nickname is Jungle.
Yeah,
Cool.
we went to school with him.
Okay,
What are the addresses of these two properties?
I don't have the addresses off the top of my head. I was just sort of describing where they were, but they're on Court
so
Street.
are you all set on that one?
So I don't know, is that one you feel like you would need to review? I think we already warned it.
Yes.
We warned it just in case. All right, let's review that then.
So he does, now that he's going with 4 units, he has triggered the state to make sure he meets all their
Right?
fire marshal requirements. Does he realize that?
Yeah. Yeah, I talked to him about that.
Boy, shame on him.
Two
Yeah.
requires that, doesn't it?
Over 3 and up.
I thought it was more than one.
That's correct.
Well, that would be 2.
Well, no, I think it's 3. And
3
the 4th
units.
one is what?
3 units.
3 units.
Well, anything over 1 has to have public building permit,
Right.
doesn't it?
It does, but when you start talking 4 units, that changes the bar.
Well, that, yes, I'm sure it
Changes
changes.
the bar, I don't think so happening. There's certainly plenty of room there. Not an issue.
So I think I told him, but it wouldn't hurt for him to hear it again.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then the other one is going to be Watson Scott.
And is the canal one warned for the same meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So there's 2 on that at this point? At this point.
20-something.
23rd?
So he has to get his occupancy permit for the state.
Yes, it is, 26, I'm
That
sorry.
sounds right.
Yeah, 23rd's
In
Friday.
that old house.
We're not going to be here for that.
26 is the first.
So when does
resident.
Watson come in?
2 weeks from tonight?
Mm-hmm, the 26th.
Good night to have a meeting.
What's that?
It's a good night to have a meeting.
Yes. Amen.
Why is that?
Oh, it's going to be a presidential debate, is that?
Oh,
Good point.
Everyone will feel argumentative.
I want to stay home and drown my sorrows.
You and millions of others.
So Watson's going to move from his current location into that little garage that's back near to the Regional Planning Commission. And we just need to work on access and maybe some screening for his outdoor storage, something like that. I've got some ideas in mind, but we'll see what you think.
And that little garage you're talking about is probably 10,000 square feet.
Oh, is it really?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll have to think about how much parking and traffic that would generate.
It's huge. That's a huge building. And I really think too, at some time, we need to revisit an
How big is
access.
it? 10,000 square feet?
Well, that's gotta be. Oh, that's gotta be.
the
That's
si-
huge.
That's the size of Taylor Rental and Paris Farmers
Well,
together plus.
That is a big building down there.
Okay, all right, I'm not question, I just,
Yes, sure.
The old
Yeah, I am, aren't I?
CDBG.
He's only renting 2/3 of it, and the other third is the co-op storage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're already leasing space down there for the co-op, which they're counting in their permit. Just wanted to mention that.
It's all about use. All has different grossing factors depending on use, right?
Yeah.
Got to go through the process with it.
But you both can't use the same count, same spaces.
Harbor.
That's correct.
Of course not. Anything else?
We can discuss that at the time, but
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
No deliberative session, no nothing?
No deliberative
So
session?
moved.
Been moved and seconded and voted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, we're adjourned. All done, Kathy.